You know, I wasn't gonna do this. I wasn't going to talk over the Acclaim. What are they calling this? The hashtag Play Acclaim Showcase. Welcome to a new era, they say. But I was live anyway, and people in chat were like, dude, let's watch this thing. And they have convinced me to, dude, let's watch this thing. And then I loaded it up, and in the chat, in the YouTube chat for this thing that is counting down. I think it's counting down to a countdown. We're still maybe about 15 minutes out from this thing. There are a lot of people in the chat like demanding Rumbleverse, and I don't know what the hell's going on anymore. I was like, but I was like, that's probably not going to happen. But I was like, actually, wait a minute. Like, that would be for a launching new Acclaim and whatever, you know, they want to have some stuff that's like, you know, like, huh, mate. Shit, dude, maybe. The rights for Rumbleverse did revert to Iron Galaxy, and was my understanding of it, but Jeff Jarrett is on the board of this thing. The thing I always said they should do is do an AEW licensed Rumbleverse game. Like, take the Rumbleverse tech and repurpose it, not just use it as is. No, that's not. I keep pushing the wrong button. Okay, so now they're on their real countdown. Let's see what this sounds like. Okay. So we've got a whole ass 15 minutes before this thing really starts. It's a pre-recorded video. It's not a live. It's like a YouTube premiere. So this is like a Nintendo Direct. Like they already cooked it. Am I going to allow myself to get worked up into believing that Rumbleverse could come back and Acclaim might be the company to do it? Because fuck, man, it is like, I'm like sitting here going like, wait a minute. Like, now that I'm like piecing that together, like what? Why wouldn't they? That would be, to me, that would be a get. And, you know, obviously, like, Rumbleverse, you know, was removed from, like, Epic published it originally, and, you know, they decided that it wasn't for them anymore, and they pulled the plug on it. And then, you know, and then that was that. There's been like a bubbling undercurrent of people that want Rumbleverse. But it's not a massive number. It's a, you know, and you know, that game, I think you could rework Rumbleverse into something that works, is what I'm saying. You know, for, you know, and maybe it didn't work for Epic at the scale that it was operating at, or whatever, but like, but what if, see, now I'm getting excited about a thing that's definitely not going to happen. There's just no way. So the part of the reason, so I wasn't originally going to talk over this, because if you asked me 10 minutes ago, what do you think Acclaim has? I would say it's going to be a bunch of like free to play stuff and some indie stuff. And it's going to be like really kind of small. Like, it's something we can talk about on the podcast next week. It's not going to be, you know, it's not some, you know, I don't think they'll have anything like super big. But again, dude, if you were trying to relaunch the Acclaim brand and you were looking at the landscape of available games and trying to find properties that were out there and available that you could tie in and say, hey, this fits the vibe of what people think Acclaim was, because you're probably not going to make a bunch of Simpsons games, and you are not going to make Mortal Kombat games. And I believe, you know, Shadow Man was a comic book. Turok was a comic book. Like, those rights have reverted all over the place. Like, that stuff's in the wind, right? And so, and it's dumb that I didn't think about this, because Jeff Jarrett is on the board of this company, professional wrestler / actor. His role in Spring Breakers, some of his finest work, if you ask me. And he is works in the office at AEW. He is part of their organization. Shit, dude, what if? Well, I guess, well, whatever. To back up a little bit, I could see them saying to themselves, we should have a wrestling game because that was one of the things that Acclaim was known for. Right? They published the WWF games prior to THQ getting the license. WWF Warzone and Attitude was the sequel to that. They published the Midway arcade, the WrestleMania the arcade game that Midway made. They published the home versions of that, and they did a console only follow up to it called WWF In Your House. They did all of the going all the way back to the NES. They published all of those, like LJN is on all of those garbage, all of those garbage video games. So they do have like a long history in the wrestling landscape. When the WWF, it was still the WWF license, when that went to THQ, they then published 2 ECW games because that's all they could get. Because EA had picked up WCW and then that went out of business and blah, blah, blah. So they like Acclaim does have a history in the wrestling business, and they have an AEW guy on their roster. What if they were making the next AEW licensed video game, and what if it used Rumbleverse as its base of technology and gameplay? It's that's not going to happen. But that's what I've wanted to happen. When I ran into some Iron Galaxy folks during Summer Game Fest because they were there with a copy of Tony Hawk, I briefly said, you know what you guys should do is make an aid. And I'm like, I'm sure you guys haven't thought of this, you dummies, you dopes. Surely no one has ever thought of it. Like, what if you did this? So I have been an advocate of an AEW licensed game that uses Rumbleverse, even if it's 4-player, even if it's this, even if it's that. I don't think you just make Rumbleverse as is. I think you make changes to it. Because I think it could monetize better. I think it could look different. I think you could have licensed wrestler parts or licensed wrestlers in it, or it needs licensed wrestlers, not just like guy in a mask and a chicken outfit, or like the stuff that was in there was like not. It didn't scan as wrestling enough. You know what I mean? But it's none of that's going to happen, dude. But like that's an available property out there. Like again, if you were Acclaim and you were going like, shit, what are we gonna get? What are we signing? What are the games we're looking for? What's some of the stuff that we're trying to line up? That would be fascinating. I think that would be a very savvy take for them. Because again, like, and maybe this is me not having high hopes for whatever Acclaim is going to be. But again, like I'm coming at this going like, they're going to have a handful of indie games. Like it's going to be like it'll be like, what is it? Null Games, the thing that Matt Rory worked for a minute there. And they were signing some games. It'll be like, hey, we're a new publisher for indie games in a world where like indie games don't always need publishers. And what does a publisher offer in this day and age? Like that's a tough sell, right? If you're just like, hey, we're going to publish some indie games the same way everyone else is. Like, I don't think that's exciting. I don't think that's, if Acclaim is just doing that. And my assumption is that Acclaim is kind of just doing that. But when you think about it, like if they want to play into the attitude or the way people feel about classic Acclaim, and they know they can't play in the licensed game space to the degree that they used to, or the degree that the actual original Acclaim used to. This is not the same company. This is a new company that just they bought the name. But yeah, another publisher like Devolver or whatever. Like Devolver is, you could maybe make the case that Devolver is maybe not quite as crazy deep in the publishing game as they used to be, because there's just more competition out there and more people are just willing to self-publish, and they don't need the money to finish their game, and so they don't have to give up a percentage of it to some publisher, and there's a lot of stuff like that. Some people are saying BMX XXX, aggressive inline. I think it would be cool to see. I wonder who develops that game. Like if you wanted to make a new action sports game in the vein of Tony Hawk, whether it's BMX Triple X or Aggressive Inline or a bike, a more traditional. I mean, you could do a Dave Mirra game, you could go get that license, obviously rest in peace to Dave Mirra, but like if they wanted to make a new Dave Mirra game, that's probably something they could consider. But I assume, I'm kind of looking at it as like, this will be a handful of indie games, and like part of me is just like, get ready for some cozy farming simulators or something like that. But yeah, I don't really know. Yeah, Extreme G is another thing that's coming up in the chat here, the YouTube chat, not our chat here. Forsaken just made its way to the Nintendo Online service, and someone had to be around to sign that deal. Who owns the rights to Forsaken at this point? Like, does Night Dive somehow end up with it, or does Acclaim still hold some weird rights to Forsaken? They might. The timing of all of this would maybe make some sense. So maybe they still have Forsaken. I don't think any of the kind of post-Descent clones are especially great. They did, yes, there was a Forsaken remastered. That was a while ago, right? But who published that? I guess that's the question, is maybe that's who ended up with the IP. 2018. Yeah, Night Dive. Yeah. So I assume Night Dive, which is now part of Atari, I assume that they own Forsaken. So that's probably why that showed up on the Nintendo service. So that's probably pretty unlikely for Acclaim to have here, because if they were going to make a new Forsaken, then that would be an Atari published game and all of that other stuff. What if Atari joins Acclaim? I think it would be, it would be more that Acclaim would be a subsidiary of Atari at this point, I think is how that would go. Like, this is a company starting from basically zero. N2O, they did not publish Nitrous Oxide, the Crystal Method soundtracked Tempest clone. Was that Fox Interactive that published N2O? I forget. Yeah, it was Fox. Yeah, it's bad that I know that. Like Revolt, that was another kind of like decent Acclaim, like late period, mid to late period Acclaim game. The Revolt games, those are decent little racing games. Iggy's Wrecking Balls. Yes, the new Iggy's Wrecking Balls is finally here. That's who would own that? That's, I'm sure that a lot of this stuff reverted to developers or whatever, but well, Iguana made Iggy's Wrecking Balls, and Iguana was an Acclaim owned thing. Okay, and that Iggy's Wrecking Balls is apparently on the Nintendo Classics service as well. What? Why? Why? Who said, hey, we're re-releasing Iggy's Wrecking Balls? That's a scary concept. We got 2.5 minutes until this thing starts, so why don't we head over to this, and we'll check this out. Damn it, I got caught up. I let it happen. I did it to myself, man. I got worked up over this Rumbleverse stuff, and I don't think that's, but like, it's possible. Like, there's no reason why that couldn't happen, is what I'm thinking. Not necessarily that it did or is going to or whatever, but like, you could connect some dots there in a way that at least make sense. Right? Like, they've got a functional video game sitting there, that you could overhaul in a few different ways if you needed to. Like it's you could do it. You could do it. They should do it. If they're not doing it, they should do it, right? But you know, I don't know. It's you've got people in this YouTube chat going like, oh, hopefully they can. This Daryl says, hopefully they can work with EA and bring back the Burnout game series. That's not how this works. That is not how this works, dog. Like people's expectations for like what Acclaim was and is and who owns what, like it's so out of whack, dude. That like if you're coming into this going like, finally new Simpsons video game. Actually, I mean, no one else is making Simpsons video games. So in some sickening way, if they had the right pitch for it, fuck it. I don't know. Maybe they make a new Simpsons game. I believe John Drake represents the Simpsons. I think if you wanted to make a Simpsons video game, you would have to call up John T. Drake and say, "Give me the Homer." But he's reachable. You can get that man on the phone. You can. Let's turn this up and see what the hell this is. They bought the logo
everyone,
as well.
It's Alex from Acclaim, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the very first, but certainly not the last, Play Acclaim Showcase. I'm super excited to kick off today's event and introduce you to some of the incredible games that our talented developers have been working on. We've got a great lineup coming to both PC and console over the next year, and I'm thrilled to share a glimpse of what's in store. Thank you, as always, for your ongoing support.
You can just buy a microphone. You don't need to talk into your laptops. Oh, whatever. Who cares?
I've waited for you. Come here for 20 years. Now at last you're here.
Don't go away. We've got something to show you.
And just who are you?
Allow me to introduce myself more fully.
It feels so. I mean, it's like it's true, but it still feels very disingenuous when they talk about the past of Acclaim and show NBA Jam and like these things that they very much don't own the rights to.
World premiere.
Rhythm hacking game. Yeah, that's like this is a solid concept. I don't know.
Oh, and they're gonna hit the...
I mean, okay, sure. You make a, like a cool arcadey basketball game. They don't all, like, it would be way worse if they were making a game that was very nakedly a NBA Jam ripoff, right? Decades of rosters, but I don't see any player names in there. Weird Mega Man thing. Okay. Oh, so there's, I mean, that's, if those aren't real players, then that's a prime, or I don't know, like they're... Yeah, what license does that have? Basketball Classics, not NBA Basketball Classics. So it's probably just city names. You saw a lot of Chicago in there, but not the Bulls. What is this thing that looks like a weird bulbous, fucked up Homer Simpson's head? Because that... You know, yeah. How many more of these do you want to play? Just as a, you know. I think I'm still up for a good one of these, but I played 3 or 4 of them over the last month just to, you know, that were new ones that got sent my way, and I didn't think any of them were especially good. It feels like a tough thing to crack into here. Are they making a top-down 2D power wash simulator clone? Is that what this is going to be? All right. I like that it has to tell you. It's a taco truck. Oh. All right. This sort of stuff, the stuff we're seeing, is precisely the type of games I expected would be at this thing. That would be a part of the new Acclaim's lineup. Like this style of indie. Like, yeah. I'm too far away from the button to hit it again. Is there a higher res version of this that we are not seeing? This may, yeah, I'm gonna change it to 1080 because it was showing in 480. That looked like picking traits, like a run-based style. You leveled up, pick a thing that will go away when you die type of thing. All right. Potato Kid.
This is the biggest freezer you can get at this price.
I like their fun little logo treatments that they're doing for all the games, like having them be specific, like... Choose an upgrade. This has a neat look to it, and it's cool how quick it moves, you know?
Getting rid of it, why?
Finally, the Montezuma's Revenge clone you've all been waiting for. A spiritual successor. Actually, this actually looks kind of neat. As a fan of Montezuma's Revenge. Okay. Cowboy hat on top of the spaceship is cute. The Prisoning Fletcher's Quest is a really good old sounding video game name. Maybe not the Prisoning, but the Fletcher's Quest. Trick Styles oh wait.
3, 2, 1.
It's time to get tricky. Go down to your used game store and ask them for a copy of Tricky. Is this a different, because there was another someone else was making a SSX like someone else was making this game, and I assume that this is actually the same game that I saw a while back, but they should get what is it, Star Junk or whatever to do the. No, that's not the. This is a different thing than what I was thinking of. Get Star Junk or whoever to do the soundtrack.
Thank you for joining us for the very first
Yeah.
Acclaim showcase. We hope you enjoyed. Wait, what's that? What's happening?
I was gonna say how many games would you expect an indie publisher to have at the launch of their thing? Is this the new Shakan the Forever Man? No. This has a neat look to it. I feel like their lineup is, about half of their lineup. Feels a little trendy, for lack of a better word. Like they've got a Vampire Survivors. Like they don't even necessarily feel like that they're. They feel like maybe they're behind one or two of the trends. Really, like. I feel like to be announcing a Vampire Survivors like
Good night, all. Good night.
right now seems a little late. I like the idea of the basketball game, like the mini games around dunking and some of that stuff seems kind of cool. Like none of this stuff looks bad. I'll say that. Like this all looks like an interesting slate. Okay. Yeah, I mean that is before we got sidetracked into like, oh man, what if they did Rumbleverse land? That is precisely the level of game I expected to see as a part of this thing. Like that style of indie game publisher, with here's our slate of stuff. That basketball game has been out since 2019. The publisher just changed to like Acclaim just picked it up. Weird. What? What's that thing called? It's called class basketball classic basketball classics. Basketball Classics. Yeah, that game's been out since 2019, and now it has a new trailer on their page. It has that trailer on their page from Acclaim. That's sort of weird. I guess they picked it up. I mean, presumably they're picking it up and bringing it to console, right? Because what would signing a publisher, you know, 6 years after your game came out actually do for you? But I'm guessing that that's probably a case of like, oh, hey, we picked this up. You know, we picked this up specifically to update it and bring it to consoles or whatever, right? But okay. Decades of rosters with 175 teams, 3-button gameplay, 1,000+ players with individualized attributes. But it's not, you know, like none of it. I don't think any of it is licensed, despite what looked like. Well, whatever. I guess like there's a long history of fake Charles Barkleys in indie games, right? So, but when I saw that for a minute there, I was like, oh, wait a minute, is that actually like a licensed person? Or and Catanaut is out. That came out just now. The last game they showed there. And okay, sure. That game looks all right. I like all that stuff. I think looked all right. I don't know. Like again, it's sort of I think that's a pretty expected lineup for them to have, and a pretty decent one. And I think that's what I was expecting. It's part of why when people were like, "Are you going to talk over the Acclaim thing?" I was like, "Nah, I don't think so." Like, I think they're going to have like probably like a decent batch of indie games, and you know, we can talk about that on the podcast next week. It's not necessarily the sort of thing. Chad here says nothing really big enough for anyone to say, "Wow, Acclaim is back." But like I think they've been signaling this, and I think if you know, it's one of those like if you have a brain and think about it for a minute, then yeah, like this is there was never a world in which Acclaim came back and made all of the same games that Acclaim made, because they didn't own any of those properties, because it was all Simpsons games and Turok and like all of these other things that are licensed to someone else. And those licenses, even the stuff that didn't come from something else like Forsaken or whatever, a lot of that IP was dealt separately. I was there, man, when they announced Acclaim was going away, and the process of that company going under was a series of auctions. Like there were like all of the IP got auctioned off separately from the Acclaim name. And so like all that stuff went to the wind immediately, like, you know, like in various packages, you know, like, okay, we got these 4 IPs, they got auctioned off over here, with this got auctioned off over here. Like there was no like big Acclaim trove of properties that have just been lying dormant all this time. They even sold off the name back then too. And this is now the second time that Acclaim has come back. Like no one remembers that like that Acclaim logo was used. Like some free-to-play company picked it up and used it for... they never went anywhere with it, but they bought the rights to the name and then rebranded as Acclaim, and they had a bunch of like, you know, this was like early free-to-play. And I want to say it was like, that was even still, you know, like whenever Acclaim went under, but it was like it was the type of free-to-play where it's like, oh, all these games came out of China and like here's this 3-on-3 basketball game, like the early days of free to play when no one here was making any of that stuff. And around then the Acclaim name was purchased and brought back. They were selling like currency cards. You could go buy like $10 of Play Acclaim currency. I don't know who was stocking these things, but they sent one. And it was like a points card for Acclaim currency for whatever the fuck that was good for back then. And so like they brought that name back then, and then it went away again. And now, you know, a lot of years later, here it is. But I want to say they called that Play Acclaim at the time. So I wonder if that stuff just got sold off more directly. Where the hell was Jeff Jarrett? Jeff Jarrett's not going to be, you know, like they're deploying him in these situations with Greg Miller, because if I were, you know, okay, you know, break a guitar over Greg Miller's head and all this stuff, like they're having fun, they're doing that thing. But like Jeff Jarrett's not going to be some like front facing partner on this thing. He's part of a list of investors in a thing, and you know, like when they came to announce the thing, they were able to leverage him and bring him out and do a thing, and yeah, he's going to be an advisor or whatever, and he's an investor in this thing, and that's probably that. It's not like he's going to be some big front facing thing overall, but yeah, I don't know, man. Like that's basically what I expected them to have, and I think that all of that stuff looks fine. A lot of that stuff, you know, as people are kind of picking through it, like it sounds like a number of those games had been announced previously, and they are just kind of getting new publishers, which is, again, you know, in the current landscape for publishing and starting a new small publisher and what have you. I think a ton of this makes sense. Like, would it have been cool for them to have one thing that was a direct link back to the original Acclaim? Sure. But I don't know what you get. I don't know what would have been the game to, like, what do you spend the money on, and is it even worth it? But like, consider this. If they had just sat down and said, we're going to start a publisher and we're going to publish some indie games, and it just picked some name out of the phone book. And so we're Joe's Plumbing, the video game publisher, you know, we would not be sitting here talking about any of these games. So to their credit, by, you know, whatever amount of money, whatever, I can't imagine it was much. I can't imagine it cost them a lot. But like whatever amount of money they spent on the rights to the Acclaim name and logo, probably paying off already. Because it gave this event a, you know, eventually they will ship more games and they will live and die by their lineup of games like everyone else does. But this got this event, this live stream or whatever, like it got them through the door in a way that they would not have been had they named it anything else. So, you know, like that's shrewd of them, again, assuming that they picked up the rights to the Acclaim name for like $40 and a tank of gas or something. Like, here it's a Subway gift card and $9. Here you go. It's my rubber band collection. I got a French dubbed copy of The Little Mermaid and $45. All right, well, here you go. Here's the Acclaim logo. Go nuts. You know, like I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure they paid slightly more than that, but yeah, that's fine. I don't know. That all seems on the up and up, and that's a good. That looked like a pretty solid roster of games for what it was. So, sure, Acclaim, sure. It's a very cutthroat space. This whole, like, you know, hey, we're going to publish indie games, and I, you know, you have a lot of. I've talked to a lot of indie developers that are just like, you know, that the ideal situation is to not have a publisher, and like, what does a publisher offer in this day and age that they can't do themselves? And, you know, a lot of times it's just money. A lot of times you'll have a developer that develops 80% of a game, and they're like, oh shit, I'm out of money. I maxed out all my credit cards. Like, I can't take this the rest of the way. And now I need to go do a deal with someone to fund the last 20%. And for that, they're going to get some outsized return on the investment. And we need that to get over the line. And it's the reality of it, right? But ideally, you don't have to do that, and you don't have to find a publisher. Acclaim, at least, you know, like I said, for right now, they're able to get more eyeballs on this stuff than a lot of other publishers would, because there's at least some interest in what the hell is Acclaim in 2025. you give it another, what, 6 months, 90 days? More time is going to pass here that they're not going to have that benefit anymore. They'll just be like, oh, it's another indie publisher, and what do they got? Unless they're going to fund some bigger, weirder move that does trade off of the name in a more direct way. But that doesn't seem like a smart play either. So I don't know, man. Cool. That's Acclaim. They're going to make some games. Or rather, they're going to publish some games. Some of those games are, in fact, already made and available now. So there you have it. They should do Rumbleverse. they should. I don't know. They should get this Jeff Jarrett guy on the phone and say, "Hey, you know some people. What if we did this deal? What if we just sat in the middle of this deal between this wrestling rights holder and this video game developer, and what if we were just the middleman that sat in here and just found a way to make that work? What do you think?" That's not the worst idea. Unless AEW wanted to just self-publish and just do the deal directly, or Iron Galaxy could self-publish. I mean, they could put out games too. Maybe you don't even need Acclaim for that. Anyway, that's a different story for a different time.